Good afternoon. Okay. Happy lunchtime. Uh, Trying to stick with this thing that I said I was going to do. Make better use of my lunch break. Uh, Probably no surprise. Oh, also super cozy lunch today. Yeah. This is like a onesie. It's very cozy. Our family did this for like Christmas pajamas. Uh, a year ago, 2 years ago. Uh, I never thought I would like uh, wearing a onesie, but it's actually super comfy. And yes, I have worn it outside the house before. Okay, so where I left off yesterday on this was successfully implemented the cancel message batch method, but I just have an integration test for it. So I'm gonna add an intent test for this. Let's see, fact, public, async task, cancel message. Let's see if GitHub Copilot can figure it out. It looks like it did. Cancel message. Let's see. Yeah, we'll create one, then we'll cancel it. Results. I don't think this is true. I don't think that the processing status gets immediately updated. I could be wrong. But this test should work, though, nonetheless. Should be successful. Let's see, it should be successful. The value type should be message batch response. And the value ID should be the same as the crate result because it's the same batch. That should work. And I always like to debug. The end to end the first time I write them because it's kind of nice to see it actually working in real time. What is true? It has a message response. Oh, and the processing status did get set to canceling. Okay, cool. It worked. Great. So I wonder if I can then assert that. Dot value dot processing status message batch status. All right, let's run this again. See if this is consistent. In their docs, they didn't show that the status would be updated, but it looks like it's pretty immediate. Okay, so we have an end-to-end test. Okay, tests add end-to-end test for cancel for canceling batch. With that, like I've got some extensions I need to restart. Okay, So yesterday I also talked about let's see. So they in this oh, also I should say what I'm working on is an SDK for the Anthropic API. You can find it on my GitHub. Um, that'll be linked in the comments or in the description. But what am I trying to say? Um, that's what I'm working on. It's basically an SDK for the Anthropic API that's written in C Sharp. It's designed to be used with .NET applications. Excuse me. Um, However, one thing I picked up on yesterday, and I don't know why I hadn't picked up on this earlier, is that a lot of methods that make individual requests um, all have a signature similar to this, where it's asynchronous, it returns a result object that then has a value that's a particular type. Um, and they all do this sort of thing here with the response, right? They get the response, they build some headers, they basically collect some information from the response headers that are relevant or specific to Anthropic's API. Then I read the response content, and then I check if it's successful, or if I check if it's successful, or if I check if it failed. If it is failed, then I deserialize the content to a particular error. And if I can't deserialize it, or if I deserialize it to a null value, then I just return an empty error. Otherwise, if it is successful, then I try to deserialize the response content to the given type for the value of the result. And if it deserializes to null, then I return an empty object of that same type. Anyways, this is all to say that I've been writing a lot of tests to basically check to make sure that this branch is covered. But I don't probably need to have this logic be unique to every single method that has this kind of a signature. So I'm going to refactor this and pull this into a private method and just use some generics to make it happen. So what I'll do is I'm going to go down here, and I think what I'll do is I'll put it like right above the send request. And I think what I'll call it is I'll call it private async task. Actually, it probably doesn't need a task. It's going to be Anthropic result of type T, and I'm going to call it create result T. And that is just going to be an HTTP response message. So then I'll just go up into one of these methods and basically pull out the common logic. So once I have the response, basically everything afterwards, I should be able to genericize. Is that a word? Genericize? I should be able to genericize. To genericize means to transform a specific... Yeah, so it is a word, okay. According to the AI overview. Genericide. That doesn't sound like a real word, but I guess it is a real word. Okay, so what are we doing here? We're doing this. We're copying all this. And then we're going to move it down here. And then the only thing we need to change is going to be this here. So we're going to instead of specifying the specific model, we're going to use T. we're going to say T. And then so because we're doing this here, right? Because we're newing up an empty version of that type, we need to use a constraint. Let's see. Yep, we need to use a constraint that basically says this type has to have a parameterless public constructor. And so what that means is I should be able then to come up to that method that I just copied. So this is getting a model. And I should be able to do this. I should be able to basically say return. Don't need to await it, just need to create it. Don't need to await it, I just need to create it, right? And so then I should be able to say create result and pass it this model type, and it should handle it. So now let's go. Oh, hold on, it still doesn't like something. The return type of an async method. Oh, it's not async. Oh, is it? Oh, it should be async. It should be task because I'm reading it. I'm reading the response content asynchronously. So I do need to await it, not just create it. It's kind of funny that rhymes. I do. Okay, so then, so let me run my test real quick, right? So let's run our integration tests. Because if that refactoring worked, then this should all, like, it should be like it never happened. Wonderful. Now there are going to be some methods that I can't do that with. Particularly these methods that return, but any method that has that type of a signature, I should be able to just use this helper, this private method. So again here, I should be able to remove all this. And say, yep, same thing here. Should be able to just say return. I'll leave this one alone. This does return a result, but I'm going to leave this one alone. Wait. Yeah, I mean, this is removing a lot of, I wish I would have done this earlier. Definitely not going to mess with that one. This is so messy. I really should do something. I have all these comments in here. Like even that, like I know this is not pretty. But I have all these. I have this chunk of code that basically handles streaming responses back from the Anthropic API. They use servers and events. And so I'm basically taking those servers and events, and then as I'm reading them off the response, but I could probably refactor this into a more, I don't know, maybe I don't know. Every time I scroll through this though, I think I could probably do this differently, but it's not bothering anybody, so I'll leave it. Okay, this one, create message async. So this one I can't really do because I mean I could. I honestly, but basically I would need some sort of hook. I would need to refactor this method down here, this create result method. I would actually need to allow it to do like um I'd probably need to have some sort of like callbacks or methods that allow me to change what we do with the model based on if it's successful or not, right? Because up here in this, what I'm doing in this method is I'm basically handling tool calls if it's successful. I don't think I want to do that. I think I dried enough of this up that I'm okay with. I'm okay with there being methods that don't. I'm okay with not every method in here using it. But there's definitely a lot of methods that can use it. So this guy's not going to use it. This guy is. This guy is. This guy is. What is that one? Anyways, I think that's a positive. It definitely means I don't have to repeat my test so many times when I want to check when the deserialization is null. So if I rerun all my integration tests, they should all still pass. Which they do. Okay, cool. So let's, before we move on from the cancel feature, let's run the full gamut of tests. All right, that worked. So let's look at the code coverage. Let's see. Where is it? There it is. Code coverage looks good. Yeah, that's normal. Let's see. Tool call has some, yeah. Okay. Yep. That's okay. I never noticed this, but was this always at 92? Yes, it was. Anywho. Okay. I'm not going to get distracted by that. I get kind of distracted by code coverage. I just kind of want it to be 100%. And I know people will say 100% code coverage is not important, and it's yeah, I don't know. I personally find it very reassuring when I have coverage of every branch of code in my own project, and I realize there are times when it's probably not the juice or the the juice is probably not worth the squeeze. But so okay, refactor, create, add, create, result, method. Oh, actually, before I do that, create result. This should actually be, if we're sticking with our naming conventions, be that. Create result async. Refactor, add private method to dry up to dry. Okay, so I feel good about the cancel method, and basically now we just need to implement the delete method, and we should be off to the races with this feature. We can publish a new version of my package. And the deleting should basically be, I think this is the one I needed to add a new model for. Yeah, so it returns this thing, which I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure why. I guess they can't respond with the message batch, or they don't want to respond with the message batch because you just deleted it. So let's write a test, right? We'll start with the integration test. So Anthropic API client integration, and we're gonna say fact public async task delete message batch async when called it should return batch. It should return I don't know. It should return delete response or deletion response. I don't know what a good name is for that. So I can basically copy a lot of this same stuff up here. So actually that's way too much. So basically what we're gonna have is we're gonna have our mock handler, and see if GitHub Copilot can fill this out. When delete message batch request. Yep, and we should have an ID. So let's say var batch ID. Let's see. Yeah, this can be batch ID. Need to implement this guy. There's probably some people that have watched me write these helpers and have thought, why are you doing that? And honestly, I just think it makes the test read a little nicer. Which you could probably argue that my tests could need work if that's my goal, because some of my tests have gotten kind of messy and long. But I just personally, I kind of like having these little helper methods to say, hey, when it's the delete message batch request, we're going to respond with something. So we're going to respond with, what are we going to respond with? We're going to respond with something that looks like that. But we can keep this. We just need to remove these. And that should be good for that. Okay, then down here we want to be able to say var result equals await client delete message batch async, and then we should be able to say result should be true, should be of type. Yep, we don't have that type yet. Should be D. Cool. Let's see, and then we'll go over to our models, or actually we'll add a test. So we'll say new file. This is going to be called message batch deleted delete response. Delete response. Oh, and this should be tests. Rename tests. Let's see, public namespace is AnthropicClient .test.unit .models. And I have this little helper test class, which is called serialization test. So it'll be fact public void constructor. When called, should return an instance with properties set. Result equals just new message batch delete response, like that. And then we should be able to say result dot type and ID. So result dot ID should be empty. It's going to be a string. Result dot type should be empty, and it should be a string. So now let's go implement that model. I know people are going to say that's a silly test, but I don't care. Message batch delete response. Namespace is going to be Anthropic models class message delete response. Yes, GitHub Copilot. Only difference is I'm going to make these emitters, which I wonder, I've kind of taken this approach to all the models in this library, or a majority of them, where they don't have setters on the properties. And I wonder if that bugs people. Yeah, I don't know. I've personally taken this style of approach to programming in C#, where most of the properties are init only, and that's just that whole idea of like immutability, right? I mean, I know C# now has records, so you can do immutability, but maybe sometimes you still want that value by reference behavior, but you do want people to like force people to new up a new object and not mutate an existing one. I don't know. I didn't really think about that when I started writing this SDK, since this was going to be something other people consumed. But I mean, I would change it if I had a bunch of people that were filing issues asking me to change it. I would, and just release a new version with a breaking change. Go through all the models But yeah, I think I don't know. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. Let's see. So I need GitHub Copilot to write me some docs. A message batch delete request represents Actually, I'm just going to say represents a message batch delete response, and then this gets the ID of the message batch that was deleted, gets the type of the message, gets the type of the, I mean, it's really the type of the response, isn't it? Message batch deleted. So gets the type of the message batch response. I don't know. I actually don't know if that's a true statement, but it's the most thing that makes the most sense in my mind to describe it. Okay, so I have this. This guy should pass now, but it's not going to compile this. I can't compile this code because I need to implement this method. So let's do that really quick. API client test. Let's see. Yeah. I really should close that right sidebar more often. So let's go up to the client, or the interface. I should also probably move this into its own uh, file. When I started, there was only 2 methods in this client, so to me it kind of felt like, yeah, we'll just keep the interface with the implementation. But now that it's getting a little larger, let's see. Get message batch results, cancel. Let's put delete here. I know some people organize their methods by like alphabetical, and that may be a best practice. But personally, I kind of tend to organize my methods in a class or an interface like with logical groupings. Does that make sense? Like in this case, I try to keep all the methods that interact with the message batch together, and then all the methods that do like the creating a message completion together. I don't know. That feels better to me. But like I noticed that a lot of people tend to just do it alphabetically. Um, and that's even like when you implement an interface, like when you do the shortcut to like control dot implement interface, it seems like that's how they pick where to insert the new method is based on an alphabetical ordering. But I tend to try to just organize methods in a way that makes sense to my brain, in terms of like location and grouping, like things that are related are proximal to each other. Um, let's see. And then I tend to try to put, like, I've seen people that put private stuff. I tend to put all my properties up top. I tend to put private props above, then public, then all my public methods, and then my private methods at the bottom. And I've seen people do it differently than that, but that's just what kind of makes sense to me. That represents the task, contains the response, which is a result, where the T is the message batch. Okay, and then I just need to implement this. So that up. Put it here. And we'll just inherit that comment. Okay, so now we should be able to actually compile the code. And this test that I wrote should pass. But the integration test I wrote should fail because we haven't actually implemented that. Message batch delete. delete. There we go. Okay, so that's successful. And then the one thing I do want to test, the other thing I want to test here is I want to make sure that it can be serialized. So we'll say public void JSON serialization when called it should, oh no, not when called, when serialized it should have expected shape. So then I'll say yeah. And I'm going to have a private const string sample JSON at you want a curly bracket. This should be ID and then type. JSON assert, and those should be equal. Oh, missing semi. I should do the same thing, but for public void JSON deserialization. Then let's rerun these. Okay, so then we can go to my integration test. Okay, so this hasn't been implemented, so this will fail. So let's see that in action. Yep, that fails. So then we're going to go in here, and all we're going to do is we're going to say var endpoint. Yep, and then we'll say var response, and then this should be awaited, and this should be awaited. Now I would expect this to succeed. Ah, we're getting so close. Object contains a trailing comp. Oh, yep. Ah, there we go. Okay. And then let's add Anthropic API client end-to-end. Backed. Public async task. Delete message batch async. Called it should return. And we'll just create one and then we'll immediately delete it. Yep, save that, rebuild the solution. It was not successful. Okay. So why wasn't it successful? In progress batches cannot be deleted. Consider canceling the batch instead. Oh. So this may be another one I can't run end-to-end tests for. Okay. Well, yeah, we won't run end-to-end tests then for that because we can't delete it. But it should work. Actually, hold on. I want to know it works for real. So I'm just gonna test it myself. I'll do it manually. Let's see. I do have hide this. Let's see. Console Anthropic. I do have some completed batches that I can delete. So let's see. Batches. Yep. This is ended. So let me get that ID. So we actually don't need this because we're not going to do that. We're not going to keep this test around. We're just doing this for manual validation that my stuff works. Message. No, it shouldn't be this. It's something else. It's this. Yeah. Let's rebuild the solution. And okay, so let's debug this. This should work because this is an ID of an actual batch that has been processed. Success is true. Great. Step over. Step over. Yep. Yep. Nice. Okay, so we know my code actually works. And let's see. Yep, and it was deleted. Okay. I'm looking at my Anthropic console on my other monitor, and I can see that batch was actually deleted. Okay, so we can just go ahead and remove that test then, because we're not actually going to want to run that in CI/CD. Yeah, so that'll just an integration test will work. Let's real quick. Let's do .NET test. Actually, I bet GitHub Copilot can generate that for me. Add method with test. Yep, that's right. The one thing I don't like about the .NET test CLI is the filter. The filtering on it stinks. Should close this other console. Yeah, let's look at our coverage. So we're still at 99%. Looks good. Looks good. Looks good. What was I saying? Oh, the .NET test command, .NET test filter. It has, in my opinion, I don't feel like the filter expression is very good. It's difficult for me to remember. For name or display name, use the URL encoding for special characters. Yeah, I don't know. Contains integration tests. Like this just, I don't know. It doesn't seem very ergonomic to me. Maybe it's a skill issue. But I wish, I don't know. I wish there was a different way to do it. this is just going to be, this should run all my integration, right? No test matches the given test case, fully qualified. Is that because I need to say integration maybe? Yeah, okay. Well, that's not terrible, but yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't seem very ergonomic. Or like, I guess if I want to run everything but the end to end, which is probably more helpful. Let's see. Everything but end to end. That. Not have end to end. End to end. Right? Huh. Oh, I wonder if I don't need to do that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I guess like Playwright, if you ever use Playwright, their CLI is like this. Test, and then you can grep for things. I feel like maybe that would be a better, or like you could actually just say like, I don't know. I don't know what the right. I don't know what I'm looking for ergonomically there, but every time I've used that functionality .NET test filter, I find myself like having difficulty figuring out what the filter expression should be. I guess it's just that's just a skill issue. I need to use it more, huh? That's probably the main issue. Okay, so at this point, we can commit this, sync up our changes. I was gonna say we're probably ready to do to release this, but I say because we probably need to add some examples to the README for these newly added things. So we have count message token, we have list models, we have get model, we have creating messages. Prompt caching, PDF support. I guess I'll just tack on down here and say message batch. Message batches. See what GitHub Copilot will write for me here. Yeah, is that the right doc link? Nice. Yep. Okay. Let's just add some examples. So, I'm creating a message batch. What are all the methods we added? So, we are creating, retrieving. Let's see, this would be easier if we put this side by side. Okay. This is the not fun part, right? You gotta do some documentation. But documentation's important. So create a message batch, like get a message batch, get a message batch results. Help if I could spell. List message batches, cancel, and delete. I could probably, excuse me. Let's see. Let's go ahead and add our code blocks here. We'll just stub them out. I personally, I didn't know about you guys, but whenever I'm staring at a blank page like this, I mean, it's not really a blank page, but when I'm looking at, hey, I need to write examples for all these things, that can feel overwhelming from a writing perspective. And what helps me a lot of times, even if it's not even like this kind of writing related, is to just start stubbing out sections or placeholders, basically creating an outline, and then filling it in. For whatever reason, 9 times out of 10, that helps unblock me. Oh, I've already been streaming for an hour? Oh, wow. Okay. So I'm not going to have time to finish this documentation on stream. But, which I know everyone will be sad about because documentation is very exciting stuff. But yeah, there should be a new version of the SDK out later today, tonight, this afternoon. I just need to come in here and add some examples, and then open a PR and let my workflows run, and then merge it into main. So yeah, this has been a fun one to work on. Let's see. That will close up one of the big issues I have outstanding for this SDK. So I have a support for the message batching. So that should be done today. I have this one adding support for computer use. It's still in beta, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see, computer use. Yeah, computer use. It's still in beta. And I frankly need to try to do some implementation at like the application level, to get a better understanding of like how it works, and then maybe how you would want that to be implemented. Like there's probably some stuff I can do with tools. Like I probably should just add some models. I should add some ability to, because they have some tools that they define themselves. Like you can pass other computer use tools, Like it says right here, you can combine other tools with computer use. But yeah, I need to do some more implementation or experimentation at like the application level to better understand this, because I've read through this like once or twice, and I grasp what's going on, but like the flow of it, like how that would actually work from like an app perspective, what that flow would look like to allow it to interact with the computer, is something I need to spend more time on. So I don't know when I'm gonna really get to this one. And I even put a note in here like I might wait till it's out of beta to actually do anything with it. I don't know. That we'll see. But then at some point I'm going to come back and do that admin API like I talked about the other day, which should be pretty straightforward. It's just super basic, REST API calls to get different types of objects and stuff. Get a workspace, create a workspace, provision API keys. You can do all that kind of stuff programmatically now through this API. So at some point I'll come back and do this, but I think the next thing I want to work on is I have an application that currently it's a node-based Express app that basically just serves as like a static file server that the whole purpose of it is to add authorization in front of some static files that I have stored on a server that I want to only be accessible by the users that can sign into this app. And right now I've got a really kind of hacky setup with how I'm storing the files that the server serves and how I don't know, it's just really hacky. I'm like, I publish the static files to a private repo, and then that private repo gets deployed to a render instance or an instance on render.com. And that deployment gets slower and slower as the number of files that are stored in that private repo are included in that deployment. So I want to decouple the two. I also want to move off render and just run it in a container on my VPS. So I think that's the next thing I'm probably going to work on is getting that done. It's more of a chore. There's not really anything exciting to it. It's more of a chore that I just need to do. But streaming would be a great, or doing that while streaming would be a great way to be accountable to getting it done. Because I tend to find that anything that's kind of chore-like, I usually like set aside for something more exciting and interesting, like working on this or learning something new, or playing with a new piece of technology. So yeah, I think this might be what you see me work on next. That being said, lunchtime has come to an end. I need to hop off here. So I hope you guys are having a good, what is it, Tuesday? Hope you guys are having a good Tuesday. If you are tuning in, just dropping by to see what I'm doing, thanks. And I hope you have a good rest of your day. I'll talk to you guys later.